Thank you for tuning in to the latest episode of Ancient Near East Meets Modern West. I am your host, Samuel David, and on today's episode, I am joined by the faces behind Ishtarfest and Hands of Change.
I'm Amara Wiley. I'm a founding member of Hands of Change, which has been a Wiccan coven in central New Jersey for 28 years. And we give classes and celebrate full moons and Sabbats all year round for the public and for um, more privately with members and seekers. I'm the mom of two 20-year-old, a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old, and I have a passion. I guess I'm a ritual junkie. I love putting on rituals and planning events.
I'm Allie. I have been a member of Hands of Change since I think 2019. I am a Sumerian reconstructionist and I've been a priestess of Inanna for the past 14 years now. So Ishtarfest is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I find that it is one of the biggest parts of servitude that I can do for our community as well as for my goddess.
Ishtarfest is a celebration and a festival, if the name doesn't give it away, that takes place every year. And I'm wondering if you could give our viewers and listeners some insight into what inspired the creation of Ishtarfest and how does it reflect the broader mission of Hands of Change?
Ishtarfest began as the brainchild of one of the other founding members of Hands of Change, Lady Maeve, and she has a close association with the goddess Tiamat and was very interested in Sumerian mythology and ritual. And she and I started having Shapatu of Ishtar parties, which were maybe not as serious as Ishtarfest has become, but we had cross-dressing relay races and other kinds of party activities. And then I became interested in the Inanna descent myth and did a lot of research at Rutgers at the Ancient History department in a number of books, the Noah Kramer book, and a bunch of other sources, and decided to write a passion play about the Shapatu of Ishtar, about the descent myth, which Hands of Change performed in 2003, and then waited a long time and then performed it again in 2016. For we had wanted to do like a 3-day festival in 2003, but we only did a 1-day festival. And then in 2016, under another member's sort of guidance and enthusiasm, we put on a 3-day festival on a piece of property in central New Jersey and had all kinds of things. We had one of our members made beer, and we had like the we had that was from an ancient Sumerian recipe. We had a feast that was all Mesopotamian food, and it was really and we put on this 3-day long passion play, the Shapatu of Ishtar, where the actors and actresses invoked the Sumerian gods and goddesses and were walking amongst the participants in that way. So that's how it got started, and I think we are all about community. Our mission statement is that we're a coven that's dedicated to spiritual growth, fostering spiritual community, as well as promoting healing change in our communities, ourselves, and our larger world. So this was a way for us to both educate people about something that they might not know about, because Sumerian worship is kind of the foundation of how modern Wicca got started, the circle and all kinds of things. And I don't think a lot of people know that. Um, and also to kind of take up some of the ideas of healing change with what Inanna stands for.
As we were planning our 2020 Ishtarfest, we, had this global pandemic, and we had already done a ton of planning and program design. And then when everything shut down, we had been saying the whole time we're gonna like go big or go home, go big or go home, and got together and kind of talk about, well, what do we do now? And I don't even remember how or who brought up, why don't we move it virtual? But it became a go big and stay home, I think was our phrase of that time, right, Amara? And so we were able to provide the festival on a more global stage. And it helped us really connect with all kinds of individuals and groups. And we offered it to the community free of charge because we wanted to be able to give something back because so many people were isolated, were grieving, were confused. And we really needed to have a sacred space for people to just come together and celebrate. And kind of the ironic thing was the year before, our opening ritual was about drawing together and merging the world of the living with the underworld. So I'm not going to say that we started COVID. I'm just going to say I think that we were kind of preparing unknowingly ourselves to kind of go within for a few years. And, Hands of Change has always believed in community outreach, whether that's been in the form of providing spiritual sanctuary, literal physical sanctuary, support and guidance, assistance with food insecurity. And Ishtarfest has really been the arm with which we've been able to do that on a global stage. And I think, each year it's kind of gotten broader and broader, and we've connected with more and more people. So it's kind of a duty, I think, to continue this for as long as we can.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a sacred duty, especially with, everything that we have going on in the world and the human need for community as well as the human need or human desire for connecting with something outside of the human sphere or even human comprehension. And I'm wondering, this is kind of a two-part question. How do you choose the themes and the programming for each year's Ishtarfest? And to what extent does a Mesopotamian spiritual current, whether that would be the gods as archetypes or the gods as divine beings or even the gods as cultural symbols, come into play?
Early on in our years, our programming was a lot more eclectic, especially when we were in person. We would design and plan, but we didn't have the community really available and around who was more specific to Mesopotamian reconstruction. So we got a lot of different topics. I think a lot of it was more comparative in nature. Over the years, especially with being virtual, we've been able to connect with so many more groups and temples and even just individuals, a lot of people who, I think kind of like how I was looking for that home and being able to connect with others. And it's been able to kind of take on its own evolution of really a festival that's for, of, and by the community. And we've been able to get the content more closely in alignment, not just with the theme, but I think more, specifically with Sumerian Mesopotamian reconstruction. And we've been able to have some really great speakers and rituals and content. I mean, we had Irving Finkel of the British Museum was our keynote speaker a couple years ago. We had Megan Lewis of Digital Hammurabi just last year. But as far as to answer your question, how much does the Mesopotamian, the deities, the culture, the spirituality, how much does that play a part? It's a huge part. it really is central to what we're trying to do and the community we're trying to build in this space.
I really find that as we are sort of considering what theme which to do each year, which sort of comes out of kind of a collective feeling about, what's going on in our larger world, what's going on in our, our circle, what's going on in the community. Um, a theme sort of comes up from that. And then once we start telling people what the theme is, we really start drawing to us the people who are um, ready to talk about that idea. And, so this year our theme is building on herstory. And I think that we are, interestingly, have a lot of women who are speaking this year, not as many men. And we have Louise Pryke, the Assyriologist from Australia, is going to be our keynote speaker this year. And she's going to be speaking about Inanna and the cosmic order of things, about justice, which I think is really a very topical thing, globally and certainly locally for us.
How do you go about reaching out to these people, especially since individuals like Dr. Finkel are often difficult to get a hold of?
I know, I think I'm all about I'll ask for anything, and the worst someone can say is no. And I'm not terribly afraid to look stupid by asking, hey, we have this thing, will you come? You want to speak? I have to say, though, Irving Finkel was tremendously kind and approachable. He answered my email right away. We actually had invited him the year prior to when he spoke, but there was some things going on, but reached out again the following year. And, he right away, he answered, responded. He was more than happy to come and talk. And just like one of the kindest humans in context with his writings. We get a lot of help and connections from people if they know somebody. That always helps. We had Nawal Nasrallah. She wasn't able to be with us in person, so she's the author of the cookbook Delights from the Garden of Eden, which is like, if you're in the temple, everybody's got a copy, or we're sharing recipes. It's one of everyone's favorites. But we happened to have another temple sister who was good friends with her and, just reached out, and she was more than happy to talk with us and gave us some videos to share on her behalf since she couldn't be there in person. So I think it's a lot of connections.
And so Allie's very good at like going out there and knocking on people's doors. And my superpower is what I call super nag, where I will gently kind of go, hey, by the way, you still have to send us this description. Hey, do you want? So I just kind of gently keep tapping on people until they send whatever it is that we're looking for. Um, and I do think people are kind of excited by the idea of Ishtarfest and want to participate. There's several people who we had Shu Yap for a few years who came and spoke from Australia on Venus astrology. That's what she specializes and talks about like the descent myth based on the astrological calendar and the Venus retrograde. So this year she was too busy because she has to speak in Turkey the week before Ishtarfest. She said, but ask me again next year, So people are very gracious and seem to like to participate. We have a lot of PhD people speaking this year who just found us. Like I don't even think we went, I don't know how all of them figured out that we exist, but they approached us and said, hey, this is a topic we want to speak on. And we're like, okay, great. That sounds good.
That's
You're doing
incredible.
something right if people are coming to us to speak,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. It's like you've lit the beacons of Inanna's temple, and
Mhm.
everyone sees that light, and like moths to the flame, they come flying in. What are some challenges that you faced? I mean, we've already addressed the situation with COVID that pretty much turned the world on its head and forced us all to recalibrate and determine other ways of organizing events. But aside from COVID, have there been any other challenges that you faced in the organization of the event?
I laugh because of the whole behind the scenes. Amara keeps us very organized. I think she's got a spreadsheet for everything. Unfortunately, I never remember my Google password, so I'm always like, just tell me what it is. Technology, I guess there's always, issues with technology and everybody screaming and crying when they get the message that your internet connection's unstable and it's like, oh shit, we're in the middle of the big ritual, like don't do this now. I think sometimes with programming, there's been years where, we didn't have a ton of content early on as we got started. It seems like that's been going kind of the other way and we're getting more of the problem we want to have, right? Where we've got more than enough content available to provide. There's always the presenter that goes a little rogue, they start talking about stuff they didn't say they were gonna do, and we're like, where are we going with this? Or like, we told you not to talk about that.
Cut the mic, cut the mic.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I think one time I had to come out with the shepherd's hook, like, wrap it up. But I don't think we've had any overly huge unfixable challenges that I recall anyway. But Amara does a lot more of the organizing behind the scenes kind of stuff. So she's doing a lot of the heavy lifting that a lot of people don't see.
Yeah, I mean, other than the couple of people who, told us what they were going to talk about and then started talking about ancient astronauts, we haven't had too much content problem. But yeah, I think everyone's pretty mellow about any technology stuff. We're all used to, technology works sometimes. And so we're like, okay, hang on, we'll just fix it. And I always have a few extra things up my sleeve to, I kind of wave my magic wand and, massage all the things that we have into a festival. And I always have like a couple of extra things from previous years just in case somebody doesn't show up, or if there's um, some kind of glitch, we can throw on a recording for a while we're trying to figure out things. So I think it's sort of invisible to people when there are issues. Though I do remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I had to take a nap Sunday afternoon because I get exhausted, like it's a lot. And I wake up and there's like this stream of text messages of like all kinds of drama was happening with
It
something.
was last year.
Like, holy smoke.
So we've addressed these challenges, but when we look at things from a different perspective, there's obvious room for transformational moments, for life-changing moments. As someone who facilitates ritual on my own, I'm certain that you've both had situations, both in your ritual life, face to face with others, and also during the events or workshops or rituals that are presented for Ishtarfest. Are there any key moments that come to mind concerning any rituals or presentations that have been transformational in the lives of not just yourselves, but also in the lives of attendees that you could possibly share?
I'll give props to Ali and Priska. The dedication slash rededication ceremony that they facilitate every year is very powerful and moving. And I I am not a dedicant of Inanna. That's not my path. I think of myself more as the Sangha, the administrative priestess. Um, but I can't tell you how powerful it is to watch the people who go through the ritual, and we keep getting more and more every year. It just, you know, how moved and incredible that experience is. Do you want to say anything about it, Allie?
Um, that's definitely like, one of my top three, I think. Priska Long and I have been doing this together since I think 2021. because we wanted to be able to provide sacred temple space for people. And like you mentioned before, Sim, it's how I always see it is we're lighting that beacon and bringing devotees out of the dark and together. um it's a ritual of dedicating for the first time or rededicating if you already are a dedicant of Inanna-Ishtar. um we do not initiate anybody. We do not dedicate for anybody. We make that very, very clear. So people are coming of their own free will. They give to the goddess what it is they want. And that can be a gift of, we've had song, poetry, just, spoken word, prayers to Inanna. Some people, they brought food, food or drink offerings. It's typically a very moving tearjerker. And, for me, the first time we did it and just seeing the reaction of everyone, how touching it was, it just felt, right. I'm very big on servitude. And I feel like this is a way that I can serve our community, by just holding that space for them and allowing them to be in that moment. Um, I would also say, I think it was the first virtual one in 2020. I think it was when um the Temple of Inanna and Dumuzid were doing their devotional, which they've come back every year and shared, and it's so great. But I just remember everybody chanting along, and like we're going crazy on Zoom, and just, I think even we have these ritual moments of like spiritual transformation. But for me, I think the part that has really filled my cup has been that connection with others. Just that community and being able to reach out and be in space with, like-minded people. And when you see people make other connections with each other and they're finding mentors or they're finding friends, and the friendships that we've been able to make with others, has been such a gift.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Priska, and she's definitely someone who, I've enjoyed chatting with her and getting to know her over the years. And I one day will get her scheduled to be a guest on this channel
Ah,
so I can pick her brain,
you
because
must.
just sometimes, and I've admitted this to her. I said, sometimes you scare me with how intense she is, and dedicated, and you can tell, especially, I mean, not just you both, but in others who are called to, I don't want to say called to ministry, because that has a lot of Christian connotations, if you will,
Mhm.
but there definitely is that aspect of what you do with temple work, if you will, where it
Mhm.
is a call to ministry and to facilitate a space for people to be vulnerable, even if it's in the privacy of their own home through a Zoom
Mhm.
call. I mean, you are stoking those temple fires, and you know creating that space for people and giving them a place to express themselves and to feel challenged and to feel transformed, and to walk away from that entire event, completely changed. And this year's subject, concerning Herstory, I think it is a we're in a delicate time,
Mm.
especially when it comes to the plight of women, not just cis women, but trans women, and how the challenges and the obstacles that are being placed before women and preventing women from living their lives and having their own autonomy, we're going to see that trickle down into the lives of children and the lives of men. And I've said this before in numerous spaces, both online and face to face with others. But I really feel as though we are in an age that could be considered the age of Inanna, or the age of Ishtar, where there's a considerable amount of agitation and turmoil, and this status quo that's being upset. and is coming apart at the seams. And we see that within her mythology and within her, even in her liturgy, specifically with Ishtar after her conflation by Enheduinanna, in which she and Inanna were kind of joined together and turned into this one being in the minds of the Sumerians and the Akkadians at that time. We're really seeing this rise in societal upset, and we have Inanna as a figurehead, as a goddess who holds contempt for the status quo. And I guess my roundabout question that I'm building up to is, there is this need for activism and there is this need for change, and I'm wondering if perhaps you could elaborate on not just the I want to say activist vision of Ishtarfest, because with a goddess like Inanna at the helm, there is that pull, that draw for activism. But beyond Ishtarfest, and especially with Hands of Change, is there anything that you could share with regards to how your spiritual expression also takes the form of activism and empowering your local community?
So
that's a heady question, I'm fairly certain.
Oh, but it's so juicy.
It's so juicy, and we both have things to say, I think. So one of the principles of Hands of Change is service, is providing service to the community. And we do that in a lot of ways in Hands of Change. We do litter pickups, we do collections at the harvest festivals for canned food for food pantries. Right now we're collecting clothing to recycle it as at a thrift store. So we've always been very committed to doing various things in the community to give back to the earth, give back to the children of the earth. And from the beginning of Ishtarfest, we chose a charity to donate part of the proceeds to, and that's been different in different years depending on what's going on globally. And we donated to the ACLU Drag Fund one year, and I think this year we're going to be donating to the UN food program, the World Food Program. I think that's what it's called. WFP, yeah, something like that. So, we are very committed to giving back and to trying to get people to think about service.
I feel like this is such a time. It's a pivotal time. It's a perfect time. The iron is hot. I feel like Inanna, this is why people put her on their banners when they were going to war. Not that I don't see her as goddess of war, like in that way. I really see like the whole sex and war, love and war as passion and strength. And that's why, she was evoked for these reasons. Who wouldn't want her on your side? But I think she is such a powerful deity, especially when it comes to activism. I joked around with somebody, maybe it was Janice, someone had made in one of our groups, like, the Bernie relief statues, and what else did she need? And I said, put a picket sign in her hand. And someone got really pissed off at me about that for some reason. Like, okay.
How about a picket sign in one hand and a pitchfork in the other?
Right? And give her some more arms. Fuck it. Torches, whatever. Yeah. I feel like we're getting really pushed to the brink, but I feel like that's what we need, right? We need to just squeeze this cyst. And I think the world is going to start to remember that women are lions, and we're not going to take this anymore. And to see the outpour of people who are supporting each other is phenomenal. We need more of it. But I do feel like every time we see another, like, holy shit, I'm getting another CNN news alert, like every 10 minutes, there is also this other side of people who are coming together. It's not enough. We definitely we definitely need more. Amara already covered the different charities that, we try to support, we try to be active in that way. I think Ishtarfest is probably, like I mentioned earlier, that is really, I think, our arm of the biggest activism in this way, at least on a global social justice level. Um, and I think she's just the perfect goddess for the time. She's what we need. And I'm not surprised if more people are coming to her, whether or not you like the term woke culture. I mean, it's happening, I do think, I think people are taking on more of a feminist stance because they feel how unnatural it is the way that we have been treating each other, the way that we've been treating our world. And that's that discomfort, that angst, that's what makes change. And now to what point it comes to that boil and what happens, I don't know. I'm I'm a little, so I'm not Wiccan, but I'm a little more on the side of it at this point. We need fire and brimstone and rivers of blood. Like I'm ready for the big cataclysmic catharsis that I think we're all looking for.
I really love this astrologer named Rob Bresney. He wrote a book called Pronoia, and his theory is that we are in an apocalypse. It's not the apocalypse that you think of. It's a slow, gradual apocalypse of change. So I really see I don't have a judgment about what is happening. I think things happen as they are supposed to. I may not like them. I am very orderly. I like order. Um, I am I was a professional organizer in my career for 20 years, helping people organize their homes and offices. Um, but I think that it's important for change that an agent of chaos creates the change, right? That's what happens. And that's what we see in Egyptian mythology with Set and Apophis, and I don't know what the equivalent in Sumerian mythology is. Maybe it's the Great Abyss. I don't know, but I think that's what's happening. And I'm just, we're watching this thing unfold. We've been born into this time, and this is what we signed up for.
Yeah,
So I'm with
I
Wiley. Bring
I
it on.
I
I didn't
totally
want
get
it,
it.
but bring it on.
Can't remember what the exact quote is, and so I'm going to paraphrase it. But I read a quote, and I'm again paraphrasing, and it said something to the effect of, even during the collapse of Rome, the average citizen was still able to live a meaningful life. And as we look at what's going on in the world around us, regardless of where you are on the socio-political spectrum, I think it's incredibly important to cling to those tiny things that may not necessarily be momentous and pivotal, but they're still there to give little sparks of joy. There's
Mhm.
what's that saying? God is in the small things.
Mhm.
And I think that in this age, this apocalyptic age, or this age of discord or chaos, or what have you, we have the goddess like Inanna, the goddess like Ishtar, all these other goddesses at the helm who um, are not just nurturers; they are also torchbearers, and they are also sword bearers, and they are quote unquote calling their children to them, just like a lioness would, or just like a hen would with her chicks. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's
Keep
it's
going.
like
It's beautiful.
I feel like just as we're talking, and my arms are just breaking out in
Mhm.
goose pimples, and I'm like, yeah, we're going to church here. You're taking us to church. So yeah, it's just a lot of change, a lot of turmoil, and there's so many different things that are calling to our attention, and even
Mhm.
in the midst of the fray, we're taking up the charge and following our deities or our spirit or source, whatever you want to call it. And each one of us is hopefully embodying the the traits of that source that we look to. And in this instance, I think that source is calling us to be a little more bold and a little more, I don't want to say brash, but a little more foolhardy when it comes to taking on the big things that are affecting the little people like you and me and those who are watching or listening to this interview.
No, I think we have, a duty to take care of one another. I do. I think that's a big part of the human experience. You talk about how people can still, the average quote unquote person can still, live a normal life necessarily. And of course, right, we don't, what was the economic status comparable, to what's happening here? Because there's a lot of that, right? Um, but it is about finding, you have to have some joy in life. You have to find what is meaningful for you. And for a lot of people, especially in this room, that may be your religion, your spirituality, how your deity provides for you. And whatever you think the lesson is, because we all are our own little mini philosophers. And so, by profession, I am a palliative care social worker, and I'm also an end-of-life doula and a psychopomp. So I work with death almost every day. And it's funny because, then we take what we have of the Sumerian beliefs of what, the underworld was like. And it's just dark and it's dank. And it's all about mud and dust for eternity. The good news is everybody's going there. Doesn't really matter what you
And the
did.
other good news is the conception of the underworld evolved over time. So,
Right. Was I say, like, that does not align with my personal spirituality, but that's okay because, we have to remember a lot of these stories are written to teach. And I think the biggest lesson there is you gotta live life while you have it. Because maybe it's all mud afterwards or whatever. Maybe it's not. But this is it. This is the experience. And if you're someone who believes in reincarnation in whatever form, that's okay too, but you're only going to be in this experience this time. And so you have to grab for, I think, those threads of what gives you meaning, what fills your cup, what brings you joy. And I think a lot of people, who are spiritual like us, a lot of that is it's service to our deities, it's service to one another, it's taking care of each other.
so we've definitely hit some pretty hard points when it comes to empowerment and taking up the cause of marginalized people and regardless of where those people are. And of course, I'm sure that viewers and listeners want to know or would be interested to know how they can get involved with Hands of Change or Ishtarfest or both. Is there anything that you could share with the viewers and listeners on how to become involved and how to lend a hand to Hands of Change?
But Amara,
Well,
take that away.
yeah, in terms of Ishtar Fest, well, we're at the taping of this, we're just a few weeks away. So what we most need is volunteers to help us be techno mages, to host and run the Zoom meetings. We have a few people, but we could definitely use some more. So if any people would like to volunteer, particularly good with technology. For future Ishtar Fests, we need presenters, people to help plan. We've had this great planning committee, uh, that we have someone in Scotland and someone on the west coast of, the United States, on the committee. So it's been, timing wise, we have to kind of figure out when we can meet to make that work. But so yeah, and it's fun to plan. Like we part of our planning process is that we always say a prayer to Inanna during our planning meetings. And typically we do a big private magical working to open the gates before the festival happens. We have not yet done that this year. I'm not sure if we are going to do that this year. But
We'll do it.
you
Make
know, all
it
our experience
happen.
there. Um, but so that's probably what we need the most. But we definitely for next year we will start planning soon after Ishtarfest is over, and I could certainly, we could use anybody's help in any form. We have people who are good at, creating graphics or doing publicity. We have lots of different needs. In terms of Hands of Change, so Hands of Change is local, unlike Ishtarfest, which is global. We do things in person, for the most part, and so anyone who is visiting Central Jersey should look us up on handsofchange.org and come to some of our events. But we also have a program that we're starting that's Friends of Hands of Change. So that's sort of like a membership um, part of Hands of Change. We noticed that people going around the circle, a lot of people would introduce themselves as a friend of Hands of Change, which wasn't really a thing. So we're like, hey, let's make that into a thing. So that will be coming up probably within the year of a way that you can be a member of Hands of Change and participate in helping support the organization and also maybe getting some special benefits, maybe some Zoom meetings, maybe some merchandise. We're still working on that.
As we come to the end of our time together, I'm sure that there's topics that we didn't cover that may come to mind. Is there anything else you want to leave with viewers and listeners? What parting words would you like to give?
Meet us at the gates. Come to Ishtarfest. Celebrate with us.
I think Ishtarfest allows participants to create the festival that they want because we not only do we have all these great speakers and rituals and performances, but we have space in the festival for people to meet. So we do this Ishtar Bucks Cafe. We're going to have the book launch party for the non-anthology. We might throw some more things in there, but so it's a place where people can kind of gather and meet each other and get to know each other. And I think that's one of the things that makes it a special online festival, because I think a lot of the online stuff is just like non-participative or semi-participative. This really is us creating this thing for ourselves.